Sandy Mitchell says, I saw Halloween this weekend and just loved it. Today, I saw that it made over $77 million at the box office, which doesn't beat Venom's record. Should the studio be disappointed in the result, even though it's still number one at the box office?
No, no, you don't be disappointed in a Halloween film, which, by the way, no Halloween film ever has opened to more than $26 million ever in its history. This thing was originally projected to be in the mid-$40 million opening weekend. Now, granted, that was a few months ago. Then that estimate went up to in the 50s. Then it went up to the 60s. Then they said it could be anywhere between $65 and $80 million. And it comes in right in that range, $77.5 million. Make no mistake about it. This is outstanding. If you had told these suckers 3 months ago that their little Halloween film was going to open to $77.5 million, they would have been popping bottles. I'm telling you that right now, they would have been popping bottles. But, it seems like we live in this age right now where everything's like, oh, but did it break the all-time record? No. Oh, then it failed. No. Okay, so it didn't break the Venom record. Fine. But let's put this in context. Let's look at what this $77.5 million opening really means when we look at it in this context. Let's look at it in 3 different ways. Number one, for the all-time opening weekend box office records for the month of October, this little Halloween film is now the number 2 all-time at $77.5 million opening. Now, of course, number 1 is Venom. That broke the record a little while ago. It still is the record holder at $80 million. How long will it hold that record? We'll talk about that in just a second. But now let's look at all-time opening for a horror movie. All-time opening for an R-rated horror movie. Well, yeah, you got the record with It that just set the record recently at like $123 million. But this little Halloween film is now the number 2 biggest opening horror film at 77.5. That's amazing. And most importantly for their own franchise, and most impressively, despite how famous the Halloween name is, it is now by far the biggest opening in franchise history at 77.5, and the previous record holder for the franchise was that first Rob Zombie Halloween film that only opened with $26 million. You're talking about a film that has nearly tripled its franchise record. Is the studio disappointed? No, not unless they're idiots. The only way you'd be disappointed in this is if you're idiots. Yes, it didn't set the record, and yes, it came close, but who cares? It set a number of other records. Now, Jamie Lee Curtis also got on Twitter the other day to talk about some other records it broke, like best opening film, horror film opening with a female lead, best, biggest opening for a film with a woman lead over 50, a bunch of different smaller records. But no, there's no way you can't be thrilled with this. And you know what? I've never said this about a Halloween film, but it's well-deserved. I've never liked any Halloween film, ever. No, not even the original, but this was a damn good movie. Is it like top 3 movies of the year? No, but it's a damn good movie, and it deserves every bit it gets. Now, let's talk about October again for a second. So Venom sets the record, and then along comes Halloween, coming in number 2. Now, this is 2 films that breaks the previous record. Remember, the previous record was Gravity at like 55 point something million dollars, right? And it held that record for years. And now in 1 month, that record's been broken twice. So how long can Venom and Halloween hold that 1 and 2 spot for the all-time opening weekend in October? Well, next October is going to present some challenges. Let's take a look at this here. Here's a couple of the big projects that are opening next October that are going to possibly pose a threat to both Venom and this new Halloween film. First of all, you got the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie. You got to talk about that first. And look, we really don't know if this is a movie that's going to get enough attention to make $50 million opening weekend, or if it's going to get $100 million opening weekend type of attention, but you have to take this film seriously. Also, a movie that's still very far away, so not a lot of people are talking about it yet, but the Ang Lee directed film with Will Smith, Gemini Man. That is going to pose a threat to both Venom and Halloween. And also, just because of how big Mr. Rogers is right now, particularly with the documentary, which is one of the best documentaries I've ever seen, Won't You Be My Neighbor, that new film coming out about Mr. Rogers starring Tom Hanks called You Are My Friend. I'm telling you right now, everybody looks at me like I'm kind of crazy when I say that is a movie that could threaten this record. Believe it. Believe that this movie can threaten that record with the broad generational appeal. It's a multi-generational film with all of the kind of buzz that Mr. Rogers has right now and all that kind of stuff. This is a film that could pose a threat. Will any of these three break 77.5 or 80 of Venom? Maybe all three of them, maybe none of them, but it's going to be an interesting month next year. We're going to have to keep an eye on this record book.